My name is Kyle, and at 32, I've always been the family disappointment. The black sheep with tattoos who never quite fit into my parents' perfect picture. When my sister Abigail announced her wedding, I was excited, until my father called with crushing words, "You're not welcome at the wedding. You'll embarrass us." Their rejection hurt, but the gift I sent in my absence, it changed everything. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt rejected by family, and stick around to see how art can heal the deepest wounds. Growing up in Brookline, just outside Boston, my childhood home looked perfect from the outside. The pristine colonial with manicured gardens hid the rigid expectations that suffocated me from an early age. My father, Robert, built his reputation as one of Boston's most respected attorneys. His perfectly pressed suits matched his inflexible personality. Every hair in place, every opinion, firmly rooted in tradition and appearances. My mother, Diana, a former Miss Massachusetts, who transitioned seamlessly into the role of socialite and charity organizer, always backed my father. She preferred peace at any cost, even if that meant silencing her own opinions or sacrificing her children's individuality. Then there was my sister Abigail, 3 years younger than me, but always seemingly decades ahead in earning our parents' approval. She excelled at everything: proper young ladies, piano recitals, debate, team captain straight, and that perfectly polished appearance my parents valued above all else. Her engagement to James Worthington III, heir to a banking fortune, was the culmination of everything my parents had groomed her to achieve. I tried fitting in at first. Throughout elementary school, I wore the preppy clothes my mother selected, attended the piano lessons I hated, and brought home report cards that earned temporary nods of approval. But something always felt off, like wearing shoes that pinched my feet. By middle school, the tension became unbearable. While Abigail thrived in our family's ecosystem, I suffocated. My 8th grade art teacher, Mrs. Lawson, was the first person who seemed to see me. She noticed how I lost myself in creative projects, how my drawings contained emotions I couldn't express at home. "You have a unique perspective, Kyle," she told me once, while everyone else had left the classroom. "Don't let anyone convince you that's a bad thing." Those words became my lifeline. By 14, I discovered punk music, growing my hair longer, and trading khakis for black jeans when possible. My father's disapproving glances turned to outright arguments by 16 when I pierced my ear without permission. "No son of mine is going to look like some kind of degenerate," he bellowed, while my mother wrung her hands in the background. Abigail watched these confrontations from doorways, occasionally slipping into my room afterward, with quiet support that never quite translated to actual defense in front of our parents. "Just try to compromise a little," she'd suggest, not understanding that what felt like small concessions to her meant erasing myself entirely. College admissions season brought the ultimate showdown. Despite excellent grades, I applied exclusively to art schools. My acceptance to Rhode Island School of Design should have been celebrated, but instead, my father refused to pay unless I switched to business or law. I took out loans and worked 3 part-time jobs to make it happen. The day I moved out, my father said, "When you're living on the street because no one pays for drawings, don't expect us to bail you out." Those 4 years at RISD transformed me. I found community among fellow artists who valued expression over conformity. My portfolio grew alongside my confidence. By sophomore year, I got my first small tattoo, an intricate compass design representing my journey to find my own direction. Each subsequent piece of art on my skin told another chapter of my story. By graduation, both sleeves were half completed, with designs flowing together in a visual narrative more authentic than any words I could have spoken. After college, I apprenticed at a respected tattoo studio in Providence, building a client base that appreciated my distinctive style. 3 years of dedicated work led to opportunities in larger studios, eventually bringing me back to Boston. At 28, I opened Transformation Inc., my own studio in Cambridge. Against all my father's dire predictions, I built a thriving business with a 2-month waiting list for appointments. Family gatherings became increasingly rare and uncomfortable as the distance between us grew. Thanksgiving dinner 4 years ago ended with my father asking me to wear long sleeves out of respect after my grandmother commented on my tattoos. Last Christmas, my mother introduced me to her friends as Kyle, who's in the art business, rather than acknowledge I was a tattoo artist. Phone calls dwindled to obligatory birthday wishes and stilted conversations that carefully avoided any meaningful topics. My parents never visited my studio, never asked to see my work, never acknowledged the magazine features or industry awards that validated my path. Throughout it all, Abigail remained the tenuous bridge between us. She occasionally visited my studio, admiring my work, even if she didn't fully understand it. We'd grab coffee every few months, maintaining a fragile connection despite our different worlds. When she met James 3 years ago, she even brought him to meet me before introducing him to our parents, a gesture that meant more than she realized. "Your brother is incredibly talented," James had said during that first meeting, genuinely impressed by the portfolio I showed them. That moment gave me hope that perhaps as our family expanded, there might be room for acceptance of who I'd become. That sliver of hope was why the wedding invitation situation cut so deep. The save-the-date card arrived on a Tuesday in January, 6 months before the wedding date. Thick, cream cardstock, with gold embossing, announced the upcoming union of Abigail Marie Anderson and James Edward Worthington III at the prestigious Rosecliff Mansion in Newport, Rhode Island. I ran my fingers over the raised lettering, a smile forming as I imagined my sister in a wedding gown, finally having her dream day. Despite our differences, I loved Abigail. The distance between us was circumstantial rather than intentional. I immediately marked the date in my calendar, blocking off the entire weekend to ensure I could participate in any rehearsal dinners or other events. That afternoon, I even browsed online for appropriate suits, wanting to respect the formal nature of the venue while still feeling comfortable in my own skin. I found a well-tailored black suit that would cover most of my tattoos and look appropriate for the occasion. The price tag made me wince, but this was my only sister's wedding. Some things were worth the investment. I placed the order feeling a flutter of anticipation at the thought of possibly reconnecting with extended family under happier circumstances. 2 weeks later, my father's name appeared on my phone screen during the middle of a workday. His calls were so rare that I immediately stepped away from the client consultation I was conducting, asking my assistant to take over. "Dad," I answered, unable to keep the surprise from my voice. "Everything okay?" His throat clearing on the other end was all too familiar, the sound he made before delivering uncomfortable news. "Kyle, I'm calling about Abigail's wedding." "Yeah, I got to save the date. Already blocked off the weekend and ordered a suit." I tried to keep my tone light, hoping to bypass the awkwardness that typically dominated our conversations. The silence stretched for several seconds before he responded. "That's actually why I'm calling. Your mother and I have been discussing this with Abigail and James, and we've come to a decision." Something in his tone made my stomach knot. I moved to my private office, closing the door behind me. "What decision?" "The wedding will be attended by a lot of important people. James's family has connections to the governor. Several partners from my firm will be there. Abigail's future in-laws are very traditional." And the word came out sharper than I intended. "Another throat clearing, and we think it would be best if you didn't attend." The words hit like a physical blow. I sank into my desk chair, gripping the phone tighter. "What do you mean, not attend? She's my sister." "Kyle." My father's voice took on that condescending tone. I knew too well. "You have to understand our position. Your appearance would be distracting. The facial piercings, the tattoos. You'd draw attention away from your sister on her special day." "I bought a suit," I said numbly. "Long sleeves. I can take out the piercings for one day." "It's not just that. It's the whole image you project. You're not the same as the people who will be there. You'll feel uncomfortable. They'll feel uncomfortable." His voice hardened. "You're not welcome at your sister's wedding. You'll embarrass us." The bluntness of his words left me speechless. Through the fog of shock, I heard him continue about how this was a business opportunity for James as much as a wedding, how appearances mattered in their circles, how I should understand and respect their decision. "Does Abigail know you're calling me?" I finally interrupted. "Of course. We discussed it as a family. I want to hear it from her." I ended the call before he could respond. My hands shook as I dialed Abigail's number, but the call went straight to voicemail. I left a brief message asking her to call me back urgently. An hour later, a text arrived instead. "Kyle, I'm so sorry. I know this hurts, but Mom and Dad are right. This wedding is so important for James's career connections, and his family is really conservative. Could we maybe celebrate just the two of us another time? I love you. But this day has to be perfect." I read the message 5 times, each time feeling the knife twist deeper. My own sister was choosing appearances over my presence on what should have been a family celebration. I typed and deleted a dozen responses ranging from understanding to furious, ultimately sending nothing at all. The next few days passed in a blur of hurt and anger. I went through the motions at work, fortunate that tattooing required such focus that it temporarily pushed everything else aside. But evenings in my apartment were filled with painful rumination. I canceled the suit order, poured a whiskey, and tried not to think about standing alone while my family celebrated without me. On the 3rd night, my best friend Michael came over alarmed by my increasingly short and dark text responses. He found me surrounded by old family photos I'd dug out of storage images from before the divides became uncrossable. "Talk to me," he said, moving a stack of pictures to sit beside me on the couch. The whole story spilled out, gaining momentum like a runaway train, all the hurt and rejection culminating in this final exclusion. "I always knew I was the disappointment," I concluded, refilling my glass. "But I never thought they'd actually uninvite me to my own sister's wedding. Am I really that embarrassing?" Michael, who'd known me since art school, shook his head firmly. "This isn't about you being embarrassing. This is about them being embarrassed by anything that doesn't fit their narrow view of acceptable. There's a difference. Doesn't change the fact that I'm not welcome at one of the most important events in my sister's life." "No," he agreed, "but it should change how you respond to it. You can let this destroy you, or you can find a way to show them exactly what they're rejecting." Something in his words cut through the fog of self-pity. Michael was right. How I responded would define this moment, not their rejection. Over the next several hours, our conversation shifted from the pain of exclusion to potential ways forward, from destructive fantasies of wedding crashing to more constructive approaches. By the time Michael left around 2 in the morning, the sharp edge of hurt had transformed into something else entirely: determination. I might not be able to change their decision, but I could certainly make sure they remembered what they'd chosen to exclude. The first 48 hours after my conversation with Michael were filled with fantasies that ranged from childish to downright destructive. In my darkest moments, I imagined showing up anyway, covered in new vibrant tattoos, causing the scene my father so feared. Other times, I pictured posting the text exchanges on social media, letting the court of public opinion shame them for their superficiality. I shared none of these impulses with anyone, recognizing them as the wounded animal reactions they were. Instead, I threw myself into work, booking extra appointments to fill the wedding weekend, with productivity rather than self-pity. If I couldn't be part of Abigail's special day, I would make it meaningful in my own way. The epiphany came 3 weeks later while tattooing a client named Thomas. He was getting an intricate family tree design with the names of his parents, siblings, and children incorporated into the branches. As I worked on shading the elaborate root system, he explained the symbolism. "Family roots run deep, even when the relationships are complicated," Thomas said. "My brother and I didn't speak for 8 years, but when my daughter was born, he was the first person at the hospital. That taught me something important about forgiveness. I nodded absently, focused on the delicate line work, when suddenly, the significance of what I was creating hit me. Here was a permanent art piece, celebrating family connections, both the beautiful and the difficult. My client had chosen to memorialize his complicated family story through art on his skin for life. I had been thinking about this all wrong. My response to rejection shouldn't be more rejection. It shouldn't be anger or shame or public embarrassment. It should be art. It should be truth. It should be a mirror held up to show my family exactly what they were choosing to exclude. That evening, I cleared my schedule for the following day and began researching. First, I looked up Abigail and James's wedding registry online. Scrolling through the expensive china patterns and kitchen gadgets, I noticed a section labeled Art for Our Home. The description mentioned they were hoping for pieces that would complement their new brownstone's traditional architecture while reflecting their personal style. Next, I researched the wedding venue, finding pictures of Rosecliff Mansion's opulent ballroom where the reception would be held. The color scheme from their Save the Date card would likely extend to the decoration's cream gold and subtle blush tones. Traditional, elegant, restrained. Finally, I dug through old family photo albums, stored in my closet, selecting images that told the story of our relationship. Abigail and me building sandcastles at Cape Cod. The two of us at her high school graduation, her arms thrown around my neck in a rare moment of uncomplicated joy. A Christmas morning when we were very young, sitting in matching pajamas surrounded by wrapping paper. With all this information gathered, I began sketching concepts in my studio. The initial designs felt too obvious, too literal. A family portrait would be easily dismissed. Something abstract might not convey the message clearly enough. I needed something that would speak to Abigail directly, while making a statement the others couldn't ignore. Around 3 a.m, exhausted but determined, I finally landed on the perfect concept. A family tree, similar to Thomas's tattoo but elevated into fine art. But this would be no ordinary family tree. The trunk would represent our shared childhood, with branches splitting to show our divergent paths. Her branch would feature elements representing her accomplishments, and choices her Harvard diploma musical notes for her piano, playing symbols of her career in corporate law. My branch would showcase my own journey art school. My tattoo designs the logo of my successful studio. The leaves on both branches would be crafted from tiny reproductions of actual family photographs, nearly microscopic in detail, but clear enough when examined closely. And at the roots, binding everything together, would be words representing the values that should transcend appearances: love, acceptance, support, understanding. I would render it all in a style that bridged the gap between classical and contemporary, using a technique that resembled gilded, illuminated manuscripts, but with modern elements integrated seamlessly. The color palette would match their wedding theme, allowing it to complement their home decor while carrying its deeper message. For the next 3 weeks, I worked on the piece obsessively. I rearranged client appointments to free up evening hours and spent weekends hunched over the large canvas. The level of detail was painstaking, requiring magnifying glasses for some of the more intricate elements. Each photograph had to be miniaturized and integrated perfectly. Each symbol needed to be recognizable but subtle. My hands cramped, my eyes strained. I went through dozens of preliminary sketches before touching the final canvas. The symbolism had to be perfect, communicating both love and truth without crossing into bitterness. This wasn't about revenge. It was about holding up a mirror. In the center of the piece, where the trunk split into our separate branches, I painted 2 children's hands clasped together based on a photograph taken when Abigail was born, and I was 3 years old holding my new sister's tiny hand for the first time. It was the emotional heart of the artwork, a reminder of connections that preceded all the divisions that came later. As a final touch, I added a hidden element that only someone who studied the piece closely would notice. In the root system, I incorporated the coordinates of our childhood home, the place where both our stories began rendered in an elegant script that resembled part of the decorative pattern, unless you knew exactly what to look for. When I finally stepped back from the completed piece 5 days before the wedding, I felt a complex wave of emotions wash over me. Pride in what I'd created. Sadness for the circumstances that inspired it. Hope that it might communicate what words had failed to express, and underlying it all a sense of peace. Whatever happened next, I had responded to rejection not with more of the same, but with the best of myself. The next morning, I had the piece professionally framed in an ornate gold frame that would appeal to their traditional taste while complementing the artwork inside. The finishing touch was a small brass plaque at the bottom of the frame, engraved with the words, "Roots remain connected, even when branches grow apart. With love, Kyle." I wrapped it carefully in cream-colored paper and arranged for a special delivery service that specialized in wedding gifts. The package would be delivered directly to the wedding venue's reception area during the ceremony, timed to be opened along with other gifts at the reception. I included a simple card that read, "Abigail and James May. Your life together be beautiful, authentic, and full of acceptance. I'm with you in spirit today. Love, Kyle." As I watched the delivery service take away the package, I felt a strange combination of closure and anticipation. I had no idea how they would receive my gift, but I knew I had put my heart into creating something true. The morning of Abigail's wedding arrived with perfect June weather. Sunshine streamed through my apartment windows as I checked the tracking information for the gift delivery one last time. Everything was confirmed. The package would arrive at Rosecliff Mansion by 1:30 in the afternoon, precisely when the ceremony was scheduled to begin. The delivery service assured me it would be placed with the other gifts for the reception. I tried to imagine the scene unfolding at my parents' house. My mother fussing over Abigail's hair, my father straightening his bow tie and reviewing his speech, relatives gathering in excited clusters. The thought brought a twinge of sadness, but not the overwhelming hurt I'd expected. Creating the art piece had been cathartic, allowing me to process my feelings and transform them into something meaningful. To keep myself occupied, I had scheduled a full day of appointments at my studio. Tattooing required complete focus, making it impossible to dwell on what I was missing. My first client arrived promptly at 9, wanting a memorial piece for her grandmother. The emotional significance of her request helped put my own family situation in perspective. Everyone had complicated relationships and painful losses. I wasn't alone in navigating difficult family dynamics. Between clients, memories of Abigail surfaced unbidden, teaching her to ride a bike when she was 6, her pigtails flying behind her as she pedaled furiously down our driveway. Sneaking into her room during middle school to help with math homework, our father had impatiently given up on explaining. The proud smile on her face when she showed me her college acceptance letter, seeking my approval, even though I was the family outcast by then. "You seem distracted today," observed my third client of the day, a regular, who was adding to his ongoing sleeve project. "My sister's getting married," I explained, adjusting my tattoo machine. "And you're working instead of celebrating?" he asked, surprised. I gave him the abbreviated version, as I worked focusing on the intricate line work rather than my emotions. He listened without judgment, then offered his perspective. "Families are complicated," he said, "but your gift sounds incredible. Art has a way of saying things words can't." By 4:30 in the afternoon, the ceremony would be over. The cocktail hour would be in full swing, guests mingling on the mansion's terrace overlooking the ocean. I imagined Abigail radiant in her wedding dress, my father shaking hands with important connections, my mother graciously accepting compliments on the beautiful event, and somewhere in the reception hall, my package waiting to be opened. My final appointment canceled, leaving me unexpectedly free for the evening. Michael invited me to join him and some friends for dinner, a transparent attempt to keep me distracted. I appreciated the gesture, but declined. This was something I needed to process alone. Instead, I closed the studio early and walked the 3 miles back to my apartment along the Charles River. The setting sun cast golden light across the water, reminding me of the gilded elements in my artwork. Had they opened it yet? Was Abigail reading my card at this moment? I checked my phone periodically, half expecting some response, but the screen remained notification-free. Back home, I made a simple dinner and tried to focus on a documentary about traditional Japanese tattoo artists. Around 8:30, the time when wedding receptions typically hit their stride, a strange anxiety settled over me. What if my gift had been inappropriate after all? What if instead of building a bridge, I'd only created another wall? What if Abigail was hurt by the reminder of my absence, rather than touched by my effort? These doubts circled like vultures as I paced my apartment. I poured a glass of whiskey to calm my nerves, raising it in a silent toast to my sister's happiness. Whatever came of my gift, I genuinely wanted her marriage to thrive. Just before 9, my phone chimed with a text notification. My heart jumped as I reached for it, but it was only my cousin Patrick, who had attended the wedding. "Your gift just got opened. Holy shit, dude. Call me when you can." Before I could respond, another text arrived from a different cousin. "You won't believe what happened when they opened your gift. Abigail is in tears. Good tears, I think. Everyone's talking about it." I stared at the messages, trying to decipher their meaning. Good tears. What did that even mean? I was about to call Patrick when a third message arrived, this one from my Aunt Susan. "Your artwork is breathtaking, Kyle. Wish you were here to see how much it means to your sister." My phone continued chiming with notifications as more messages arrived from various family members. Each offered fragments of information without the complete picture. It was like trying to assemble a puzzle with half the pieces missing, and still nothing directly from my parents or Abigail. I was contemplating calling Patrick for details when my phone began ringing. My mother's name and photo appeared on the screen. I stared at it for several seconds, my thumb hovering over the answer button before deciding I wasn't ready for that conversation. The call went to voicemail. No message was left. 3 minutes later, she called again. Again, I let it go to voicemail. This time, she left a brief, tear-filled message. "Kyle, please call us. Your gift. We need to talk to you." The ambiguity was maddening. Was she angry? Moved, regretful? Her emotional tone could have indicated any of these responses. Before I could analyze it further, my phone lit up with an incoming video call from cousin Jessica, the family member I'd remained closest to over the years. I accepted the call, and Jessica's face appeared flushed with excitement and what looked like several glasses of champagne. She was clearly still at the reception, having stepped away to a quieter area. "Kyle, oh my God, you won't believe what's happening here." She flipped the camera briefly to show the reception hall where a crowd had gathered around something I couldn't quite see. "Your gift is the star of the reception." Everyone's absolutely blown away. What exactly happened? I asked, desperate for concrete details. Jessica launched into a breathless account. "So they were opening gifts during dinner, just a few of the special ones, you know. And when they got to yours, Abigail read your card first and already started tearing up. Then James helped her unwrap it, and when they saw what was inside, Abigail just completely broke down. Broke down. My stomach clenched. Like upset, broke down. No, happy crying. She couldn't even speak for a few minutes. James was explaining the art to everyone nearby, pointing out all the details and symbols. He was so impressed. Kept telling everyone, his new brother-in-law is this amazing artist. Then Abigail finally pulled herself together and asked the DJ for the microphone. Jessica paused for dramatic effect, taking a quick sip of champagne. And I prompted, unable to bear the suspense. "And she gave this beautiful, impromptu speech about you. About how talented and true to yourself you've always been. About how she wished you were there, and how much she values your relationship." Kyle, there wasn't a dry eye in the place. Even your dad looked emotional. which you know is basically unheard of. I sank onto my couch, struggling to process what I was hearing. This wasn't at all the reaction I had anticipated. I had hoped for appreciation, perhaps some reflection, but this level of emotional impact exceeded my wildest expectations. "They've displayed it on an easel near the head table." Jessica continued, flipping her camera again to give me a distant glimpse of the scene. "People keep going up to look at it closer. The photographer's taking pictures of it. It's become this whole thing." We talked for a few more minutes before Jessica had to return to the celebration. As our call ended, she said something that lodged in my heart. "Your absence is being felt today, Kyle. But thanks to your gift, it's being felt as a loss, not as a relief like your dad might have expected." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence, staring at my phone as more messages continued to arrive. Each offered another piece of the unfolding story at a reception I wasn't attending. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had been excluded to avoid drawing attention, yet my absence and my gift had become the focal point anyway. Around 11:30, as the reception would be winding down, a text arrived from Abigail herself. "Your gift is the most beautiful thing I've ever received. We need to talk. I'm coming to see you next week. I love you, brother." I read and reread those words until they blurred through unexpected tears. Something had shifted. I wasn't sure yet what it meant for our family going forward, but for the first time in years I felt a door opening rather than closing. The morning after the wedding, I woke to 23 unread text messages, 5 missed calls, and numerous social media notifications. My artwork had apparently caused quite a stir, with reactions rippling out far beyond the immediate family. I scrolled through the messages, trying to piece together a complete picture of what had happened. My phone rang again as I was making coffee. My mother's name appeared on the screen for the 3rd time since last night. I took a deep breath and answered. "Hello." I kept my voice neutral, unsure what to expect. "Kyle." My mother's voice sounded different, somehow lacking its usual carefully maintained composure. "That painting. I had no idea you were so talented." Not exactly the opening I had expected. "I've been doing art professionally for over a decade, Mom." "I know, but tattoos are different." This was so beautiful, so meaningful. She paused. Abigail couldn't stop crying. In a good way. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. This conversation felt surreal after years of strained interaction. "Your father wanted to call you too, but he's processing. You know how he is." Another pause. "We made a mistake, Kyle. Seeing your art, hearing what everyone said about it, watching Abigail's reaction, we should have found a way to include you." The admission stunned me. My mother had never directly acknowledged a parenting mistake before. Her loyalty to my father's decisions had been unwavering throughout my life. "It's a bit late for that," I replied, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "I know. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry." Before I could formulate a response to this unprecedented apology, my phone beeped with another incoming call. "I have to go, Mom. Someone else is calling." I switched to the new call without waiting for her goodbye. It was my cousin Jessica again, this time for a morning after debrief. "You've become the talk of the family," she announced without preamble. "Aunt Catherine is showing everyone pictures of your gift on her phone. Uncle David wants to commission you to do something similar for their 40th anniversary. And James's parents were asking all about you." Wait, James's parents? The super conservative ones. Turns out his mom studied art history before becoming a banker's wife. She was absolutely gushing over your technique, said it reminded her of something from the Vienna secession movement or whatever. Jessica continued with a detailed account of various relatives' reactions, from genuine admiration to thinly veiled jealousy that my gift had overshadowed their expensive crystal vases and kitchen appliances. But the best part, she concluded, was your dad's face when James's father, like the actual bank president, asked for your business card because he collects contemporary art. Your dad looked like his brain was short-circuiting. I couldn't help but laugh at the image. The very connections my father had been protecting from my embarrassing presence were now asking about me. Throughout the day, more messages arrived from extended family members and even wedding guests I'd never met. Someone had posted photos of my artwork on Instagram, tagging me and generating interest from strangers who wanted to know if I sold pieces similar to the wedding gift that made everyone cry. By mid-afternoon, my business email had received 3 serious inquiries about commissioned artwork, including one from a gallery owner who had been a guest at the reception. The unexpected professional interest was flattering but secondary to the family dynamics playing out through my buzzing phone. Around 4 o'clock, Jessica called again, this time with breaking news. Abigail and James just left for their honeymoon, but before they did, she had a massive argument with your dad. About what I asked, though, I could guess. About you, obviously. I didn't hear everything, but she was telling him how hurtful it was that he excluded you, especially now that everyone could see how talented and thoughtful you are. She said something about him caring more about appearances than actual family bonds. This information caused a complex emotional response. While vindicating, it also made me sad that Abigail's wedding day had included family conflict. That hadn't been my intention. How did Dad respond? That's the surprising part. He didn't get defensive like he usually does. He just listened, looking kind of defeated. Then he said something private to her that I couldn't hear, and they hugged for a really long time. The image was difficult to reconcile with the father I knew, the man who had never admitted fault or shown emotional vulnerability in my presence. One more thing, Jessica added. Before they left for the airport, Abigail told me specifically to tell you she's coming to your studio the day they get back from their honeymoon. She made it sound non-negotiable. By evening, the initial flood of reactions had slowed to a trickle. I found myself staring at the swirl of notifications, unsure how to feel about this sudden recognition. For years, I had sought my family's acceptance and understanding, only to be met with judgment and rejection. Now, because of one artwork, opinions seemed to have shifted dramatically. Was it really that simple? Or was this just a temporary emotional response that would fade as quickly as it had appeared? My skepticism felt justified given our history. Yet I couldn't deny the hope taking root. Abigail's text had seemed genuinely moved. My mother's apology, while late and limited, was unprecedented. Even my father's reported reaction suggested some potential for change. The most surprising revelation came just before midnight, when my cousin Patrick called with one final piece of information. You know what your artwork is called now? Everyone's referring to it as the uninvited gift. Ironic, right? That's actually perfect, I replied, appreciating the layered meaning. It's becoming like family legend already. Your dad overheard someone calling it that and just walked away without saying anything. I think he finally realizes how bad it looks that he excluded you. We chatted for a few more minutes before ending the call. As I prepared for bed, I reflected on the day's developments. My absence had been transformed from something my family had orchestrated to something they now regretted. My gift had spoken louder than my presence ever could have. The real test would come when the emotional high of the wedding faded. Would these new perspectives last? Would my father's apparent regret translate to actual changed behavior? Would Abigail's appreciation lead to a stronger relationship? These questions remained unanswered as I drifted off to sleep. But for the first time in years, I felt something that had been missing in my relationship with my family, hope. For 3 days following the wedding, I maintained radio silence with my family. Despite the continual notifications and messages, I needed time to process everything that had happened and decide how I wanted to proceed. This sudden interest in my art and apparent regret over my exclusion felt validating but also disorienting after years of dismissal. My father attempted to call twice during this period. I let both calls go to voicemail, not quite ready for that conversation. His messages were uncharacteristically tentative, asking me to call back when you have time rather than demanding an immediate response as he would have in the past. On the fourth day, my studio manager buzzed the intercom while I was finishing a detailed back piece for a client. "There's someone here to see you," she said, an unusual note in her voice. "I don't have any consultations scheduled until 3, I replied, focused on the shading work in front of me. "It's your sister, Abigail. She says she'll wait as long as needed." My hand froze over my client's skin. Abigail was supposed to be in Bali for another week. What was she doing here? "Tell her I'll be about 30 minutes, I said, forcing my attention back to the tattoo. Somehow, I managed to complete the session professionally, though my mind was racing with questions. When I finally emerged from the private room, I found Abigail sitting in the reception area, looking distinctly out of place in her designer dress and pearls amid the edgy artwork and alternative clientele. She stood immediately when she saw me, her expression a mixture of determination and uncertainty. The contrast between her polished appearance and my tattoo-covered arms and workplace attire had never seemed more pronounced. Yet she stepped forward without hesitation and wrapped her arms around me. "You came back early," I said awkwardly when she finally released me. "We cut the honeymoon short," she replied. "After everything that happened at the wedding, it didn't feel right to be celebrating on a beach when this was unresolved." I gestured toward my private office at the back of the studio, away from curious eyes. Once inside, with the door closed, the air between us felt charged with unspoken emotions. "James was okay with changing your plans?" I asked, buying time as I tried to gauge her mood. "It was his idea, actually." She smiled faintly. "He said family should come first. That's part of why I love him." I nodded, appreciating this unexpected support from my new brother-in-law. "Congratulations, by the way. I hear it was a beautiful wedding. It would have been better if you had been there." Her voice cracked slightly. "Kyle, I am so sorry." The directness of her apology caught me off guard. I had expected some justification, some qualifying statement to soften her responsibility. "I should never have agreed to exclude you," she continued when I didn't immediately respond. "It was wrong, and I knew it was wrong even when I went along with it. I was trying to please everyone, and in the process, I hurt the person who has always supported me, even when I failed to do the same for you." Her eyes filled with tears. "Then your gift arrived, and it was like seeing our entire relationship reflected back at me. All those moments I'd forgotten or taken for granted. The fork in our paths. How we grew apart, but still came from the same roots. That was the idea," I said quietly, "to show what was being rejected. It showed us so much more than that. It showed everyone the person you truly are, not the caricature Dad had created in his mind." She wiped at her eyes. "The artist, the thoughtful brother, the person with more emotional intelligence than the rest of the family combined." I leaned against my desk, processing her words. I didn't send it to make everyone feel guilty. "I know. That's what makes it even more powerful. You responded to our rejection with something beautiful rather than angry." She reached for my hand, examining the tattoos that covered it. "You've always been the strong one, Kyle. I'm the one who caved to expectations, who never stood up for what was right, if it meant confronting our parents." This admission shifted something in me. For years, I'd seen Abigail as the favored child, the perfect daughter who had it easy. I had never considered that conforming might have been its own kind of prison. "What happened after the reception?" I asked. "Jessica mentioned an argument with Dad." Abigail nodded, taking a seat in one of the client chairs. "It was a long time coming. After everyone's reaction to your gift, after seeing James's family admire your work while my own father had excluded you, something just broke loose. I told him exactly how wrong he had been, how shallow his values were, how much damage he had done to our family with his obsession with appearances. That couldn't have gone over well. Actually, he just listened. For maybe the first time ever, She looked surprised, even recalling it. When I finished, he said something I never thought I'd hear from him. "I think I've made a terrible mistake." The words hung in the air between us. Our father admitting a mistake. It seemed almost impossible. "He asked me if you would ever be willing to talk to him again," she continued. "I said I didn't know, that it would be entirely up to you and he would need to respect whatever you decided." I felt a complicated tangle of emotions: vindication, lingering, hurt, cautious hope, and something like pity for a man so constrained by his own rigid worldview that he had damaged his relationship with his son. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that conversation," I admitted. "That's completely fair," Abigail assured me. "But when you are ready, if you ever are, I think you'll find him different than before. Your gift didn't just move me, Kyle. It shook something loose in both our parents." We talked for nearly 2 hours, covering years of misunderstandings and unspoken feelings. She shared perspectives on our childhood I had never considered, and I helped her understand how isolation from the family had shaped my adult life. It wasn't always comfortable, but it felt necessary and ultimately healing. As our conversation wound down, Abigail glanced at her watch. "James and I are hosting a small dinner this weekend at our new place. The art piece is already hanging in our living room. It's the first thing we unpacked." She hesitated. "Would you consider coming? Just us, no parents or extended family. A fresh start." The invitation represented exactly what I had wanted for so long: recognition, inclusion, connection, on my own terms. Yet I found myself setting a boundary I wouldn't have dared establish before. "I'd like that, but I need you to understand something going forward. I'm willing to rebuild our relationship, Abigail. I want that. But I'm not changing who I am or how I look to make anyone more comfortable. That has to be clear from the beginning." She nodded immediately. "Absolutely clear. I don't want you to change. Neither does James. We want to know you, the real you, not some sanitized version that doesn't exist." "Then I'll be there," I promised. As she was leaving, Abigail paused in the doorway. "The gift you gave wasn't just the artwork, you know. It was the opportunity for me to see myself more clearly, to recognize where I've failed as a sister. That's a gift I didn't know I needed, but I'm grateful for it now." Watching her walk through my studio, stopping to admire the flash art on the walls with genuine interest, I felt the first real sense of healing. Our relationship wouldn't be repaired overnight, but the foundation for something authentic was finally being laid. That evening I received a text from James, sent separately from Abigail's phone. "What you did for my wife with your gift was extraordinary. I've never seen art move someone so deeply. Thank you for giving us not just a beautiful piece for our home, but the beginning of a real family relationship. Looking forward to Saturday." For the first time since the wedding invitation debacle began, I felt a genuine smile form. Perhaps being uninvited had ultimately opened a door that might have remained closed if I had simply attended as an awkward, marginalized family member. Sometimes rejection, when responded to with authenticity rather than anger, could become the catalyst for something better than simple inclusion. The dinner at Abigail and James's new brownstone marked the beginning of a careful rapprochement. True to her word, my sister had prominently displayed my artwork in their living room, positioned where it was impossible to miss upon entering. James proved to be genuinely welcoming, asking thoughtful questions about my creative process and business, with real interest rather than polite obligation. That evening established a new pattern in our relationship. Regular dinners followed, sometimes at their place, sometimes at my apartment, occasionally at restaurants around the city. Abigail made consistent efforts to bridge our different worlds, even visiting my studio during business hours to better understand my professional life. 3 weeks after our initial reunion, she called with news that made my stomach clench with anxiety. "Mom and Dad want to see you," she said, without preamble. "They're asking if they can come to dinner at our place with you there." Neutral territory. My immediate instinct was refusal. The hurt still felt raw, and the prospect of facing my father after his explicit rejection seemed overwhelming. But something in Abigail's voice suggested this mattered to her as well. "What do you think I should do?" I asked, trusting her insight into our parents' current state of mind. "I think they're genuinely regretful," she replied after a thoughtful pause. "Dad especially, though he's struggling with how to express it. This is uncharted territory for him admitting he was wrong." I agreed with conditions. The dinner would be at Abigail's. It would be kept relatively short, and she would remain present throughout, as a buffer. She readily accepted these terms, sounding relieved that I was willing to try at all. The dinner itself was as tense as expected. My mother embraced me immediately upon arrival, holding on longer than she had in years. My father offered a stiff handshake, his eyes flickering briefly to my visible tattoos, before meeting my gaze with unusual uncertainty. Conversation remained surface level through the appetizer course, carefully navigating around any potentially contentious topics. James deserved credit for maintaining the flow of discussion, drawing out commonalities where possible and deflecting when tensions threatened to rise. It wasn't until dessert that my father finally addressed the elephant in the room. "Your artwork," he began, awkwardly gesturing toward the family tree piece on the wall. "It's quite extraordinary. I had no idea you were capable of that level of sophistication." The backhanded compliment might have angered me years earlier, but now I recognized it as his limited attempt at reconciliation. "There's a lot about me you've chosen not to see, Dad." He nodded, surprising me. "That's becoming increasingly clear." My mother jumped in, perhaps sensing the precarious moment. "Several of our friends have asked about you since the wedding. The Richardsons want to know if you take commissions for portrait work, and James's father mentioned you might be interested in joining the arts committee at the club." I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. "So now I'm acceptable in your social circles, because people liked my art," Kyle, my father said, setting down his fork with deliberate care. "I know how that sounds, and you have every right to be angry. But please understand I'm trying to see things differently." The admission, however limited, was unprecedented. I studied his face, noting the unfamiliar humility in his expression. This wasn't the domineering father I had grown up with. "It's going to take more than one dinner to fix this," I said finally. "I know." He met my eyes directly. "I'm willing to try if you are." It wasn't a full apology, but it was a beginning. As we said our goodbyes later that evening, the awkwardness remained, but some of the hostility had dissipated. We had managed a conversation without anyone walking out or raising their voice, which represented progress by our family's dysfunctional standards. Over the following months, small steps accumulated into meaningful change. My mother visited my studio for the first time initially, uncomfortable among the alternative clientele, but gradually showing genuine interest in my work. My father remained more distant but made consistent efforts, including attending a gallery showing where some of my fine art pieces were being exhibited. The most significant moment in our evolving relationship came 6 months after the wedding, when Abigail asked me to design a small tattoo for her 30th birthday. A simple line drawing of 2 hands clasped together, reminiscent of the central image from the wedding gift. "Are you sure?" I asked, knowing how our parents would likely react. "Dad might finally be accepting my tattoos, but that doesn't mean he's ready for his perfect daughter to have one." "I'm done living for their approval," she replied with newfound confidence. "Besides, it will be small and easily hidden for work. This is for me, not them." The day she came to get the tattoo, I expected her to arrive alone. Instead, she walked in with James, who photographed the whole process, and, astonishingly, my father. He stood awkwardly near the door, clearly uncomfortable, but determined to be present. "I want to understand what you do," he explained, when I raised my eyebrows at his appearance. "If I'm going to accept this part of your life, I should at least witness it firsthand." Watching him observe my professional process, seeing his expression shift from apprehension to something like respect, as he witnessed my careful work and sterilization protocols, represented a breakthrough I had never thought possible. He would never fully embrace this world, but he was making a genuine effort to see it through new eyes. The ripple effects of my wedding gift extended beyond just family relationships. One of the guests, a gallery owner named Eleanor, contacted me about representing my fine art pieces. She had been impressed, not just by the technical skill displayed in the family tree, but by the emotional depth it conveyed. "You have a rare ability to translate personal narrative into visual language," she told me during our first meeting. "I'd like to help you develop that aspect of your career alongside your tattoo work." This unexpected opportunity opened a new creative avenue I had only dabbled in previously. I began creating more fine art pieces, often exploring themes of family identity and belonging. My first small exhibition sold out completely, with collectors responding to the authentic emotion evident in the work. My parents attended the opening night, still somewhat out of place among the eclectic art crowd, but making a visible effort. My father even purchased one of the pieces, a gesture that spoke volumes about his changing perspective. "I'm proud of you, Kyle," he said that evening, the words coming out awkwardly but sincerely. "You found your own path when I was trying to force you onto mine. That took courage I didn't understand until now." Those words, so long sought and finally offered, healed something deep within me. Not completely, not all at once, but meaningfully nonetheless. The journey from rejection to reconciliation taught me lessons I'm still processing today. How authentic expression can bridge divides that arguments never could. How art can speak truth when words fail. How even the most rigid people can grow if given the opportunity. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes being excluded forces you to find your own voice, one that ultimately speaks louder than if you had been reluctantly included all along. My uninvited gift became the catalyst for a family transformation none of us could have anticipated. If you're facing rejection from those who should accept you most, remember that how you respond defines you more than their rejection ever could. Creative truth-telling holds more power than anger or retaliation. And sometimes the very qualities others try to diminish in you are exactly what they need most. Has your creative expression ever changed a difficult relationship in your life? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories about authentic living and family healing. And remember, the people who truly belong in your life will appreciate you for exactly who you are, not who they wish you would be. Thanks for listening, and I wish you the courage to express your truth, especially when it's difficult.